will let you know if that is up. Yes.
I see. Add this up here. You guys will take care of chat because I do not see chat.
Mm-hmm. Out. Have you gone?
You know, I just realized, did anyone bother changing the title?
Yeah, please. We're still streaming the tournament.
What's the part about live?
I have it up on my phone.
Is EST different to ET? Like Eastern time?
Only one way to find out.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
I changed the title of the stream.
Good.
It's just the competitive perspective on TG Dominion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfect. Oh, there's daylight savings has changed or something.
Let's see. We are just testing stuff right now.
Yeah, don't worry about the black screen, folks, and the weird audio. We're just making sure things aren't crashing.
Yeah, doing
Different
some
production setup today.
Oh, yeah, we're all kind of ad hoc. Just trying to realize I told some people the wrong time, or rather the right time, in the wrong time zone, which is not exactly helpful. But you know,
Time zones are fun.
oh, they're a pain. Daylight savings has happened in some places and not in other places, and so we've not got it here yet, but it's gone to other places. Come on,
Man,
like,
daylight savings should just go commit Lego step. Like, why is it a thing?
Yeah, get your shit together, Lego. Wait, get your shit together, Lego. What? Get your shit together. Time. Grumble.
The general concept of time.
Yeah. What even is that?
Audio seems to work fine. That's good to hear, Dio. Thank you.
All right, let's see if we can stick an image up there or something, just so we got so people know they're not watching like the void.
I mean, personally,
Alright, I have this up.
Competitive conversation always hits differently when we're staring at the all-consuming void of the infinite.
Yeah, I mean it's just nice.
I mean, this shows up.
Yeah, a view right into my soul.
That's the exact same feeling people play when they play matchmaking these days.
Yeah.
It's just simulating the competitive experience.
Exactly. All right, so I've got some people in the other channels. Let me drag them in. Oh, that's Jules Laugh. So wait till he has something to say. What's the thing?
Mm-mm.
I think Clutch hosted us.
Ooh, nice. Thank you kindly.
We shall see. We shall see. I'm not thinking anything. Ignore.
That's a mood.
Yeah. Be
So yes.
on the watch for Clutch joining a VC so we can drag him in.
All right.
Oh, there it is. He's in waiting room.
Nice.
Waiting room. There you goes. I drag. I cannot drag.
Oh, let me do it. Where does he go to?
And the gauze is there as well.
Where are they? Oh, they're in they're in a different. Yeah, Norgoz, they're in a different VC than the one I expected. I'll move them up like one by one because. Come on.
Everyone's just
There we
bundling
go.
in.
Hello, hey Clutch and Norgoz. Hello.
Hello.
There we
All
are.
right. So Freeze, you said Freeze wasn't showing up probably.
Yeah, Freeze is not very well at the moment, so he might come later, he might not. Yeah, if you're wanting to join the discussion, I think I've invited a bunch of people. Just hop into the dojo chat channel, and we'll drag you in. Like, we're mostly going to be taking opinion from like competitive players and casters for today, but maybe at the end we'll bring in just everybody and just have a free for all for anybody who's got points they want to bring up that we haven't yet. Right, I'm not sure if there's anybody else that I've looked through my DMs to see who are going to come along. I think I told people that I said it was 9 p.m. UTC and that was 5 p.m. Eastern time, but apparently there's been a daylight savings thing in between now, so we saved some daylight and unfortunately not saved my ability to keep time. So yeah, oh, that's a nice little window. That's smart, very smart. All right, Clutch, you there? I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Yep, I'm here.
Hello. All right. Okay, so I think we'll start off. I've got a little agenda thingy which I've dropped into people who need it and have it. We'll start off. We'll do a quick, just a general introduction of what the changes for the testing ground dominions are what they actually are, and what the aim of this session is. So basically today we want to talk about how the testing ground changes are impacting the competitive play and what competitive opinions on it. How's it going to shift the meta? Are the changes good, bad, all that kind of stuff, really. Also want to see how it sort of affects the game from a spectator standpoint. So I guess start off, we'll do a quick summary of what the changes actually are. So the first big thing is standardized renown. It used to be that your renown you'd gain was based on the class that you played, but now it's completely standard. All classes get the same renown for doing the same things. So no more assassins getting no renown, even though they've got 20 assists. No more heavies getting tier 4s 2 minutes into the fight because they've got 2 kills on a zone and have been boosting for a minute. So that's the biggest probably change that most people will notice, especially if they play assassins. Then the second change is the removal of almost all of the various different renown bonuses that you get from different kills. So things like survivor and perfect and team multi-kill, team double kill, all that kind of stuff. All of those boosts of first blood, etc. They call them special snowflake bonuses in the Warriors Den stream, but they're all gone. So now you just get a flat amount. Well, you get the normal amount per kill. You get a little bit extra if you're on kill streaks, and then there are a handful of bonuses left, which are mostly to do with comeback type mechanics. So there's one, the streak breaker bonus is still there, and I think there's also one as well if you get revenge on somebody who's killed you multiple times. But in general, you'll know the amount of renown you get from killing somebody. And the biggest one, most of these are not really particularly impactful, or at least very hard to control. But the big one of those that is very strongly impactful on the meta is the removal of defender renown, which used to get a big bonus if you were on the same zone as one of your allies who got a kill and you own the zone. And that is now gone, as are other team-wide bonuses like Ace, which is you'd get a flat 20 renown if you killed everybody on the opponent team at the same time. So that's how renown has changed. I guess we have little diagrams and things that the devs have shown us in the Warriors Den, but we can bring them up as we're talking about in particular, because I'm going through them quite fast now. So the other things are the removal of player-dependent zone capture speeds. Now all zones are captured at exactly the same speed. In the last testing grounds, it was 5.5 seconds. In this most recent one, it is 4.5 seconds. So it doesn't matter if you've got 1 player or 4 players on a zone, it's going to take you 4.5 seconds to capture it. The next few things are the changing of feat thresholds that you get with renown. So that was the image we had up right at the beginning. Instead of, I think the ones in live game are really strange. The biggest gap is actually between your 2nd and 3rd feat rather than your 3rd and 4th. And the ones in the testing grounds are much more nice round numbers and make a bit more sense. So those are big changes for that. And the last thing is the change of the score distribution and the UI that represents it. So previously, if we have like so there's the image that says points on it.
Which
The-
one? I have this one. I have this one for capture speed, and I have this one for
live.
this the one you wanna.
That was capture speed. It is. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm watching. Yeah, that's the one. Perfect. So, in live, the values for controlling zones and boosting zones and capturing the minion lane are all kind of all over the place. It's 0.74 points per second if you hold a zone, but it goes up to 0.85 if you're boosting, and the minion lane is almost worth double a capture zone on its own, even though it displays as +1 on the UI. In the testing grounds, these have been changed so they are much more accurate. You can at least so things that are +1 are actually the same as other things that are +1, and things that are +2 are the same as other things that are +2. In the first week, it was 0.9 per second for the minion lanes and the capture zones, and then 1.8 per second for boosted. And then in the second week of the last testing ground, and in this testing ground, they are 0.9 per second for the zones, and then if you're boosting or you control the minion lane, it displays as not as 2 per second as +2, but it is 1.5 per second, so it's slightly more than 50% extra for boosting or holding the minion lane. So those are the big changes for overall score distribution, and it should be a lot clearer to people the relative importance of the zones, and you won't see that we just got +1 on a slider capture and +1 on mid lane, even though the +1 on mid lane is almost twice as good as the +1 on the capture zone. I think what was happening was that these values are being rounded up and being displayed. The UI cannot display decimal places, so that was probably what was causing these weird ones. Those are the overall changes in the testing ground Dominion, but there has been a few changes in this particular Dominion testing ground, because as you recall, we had a testing ground on Dominion in general I guess it was last season, right? Was it last season?
Yeah, it was last season.
And that's where they brought in all these changes, and this testing ground, the changes are much smaller and much more like little tweaks, and they are to the feat thresholds, which have gone down because apparently people weren't getting their feats fast enough in the previous version. And they have also, it's the capture speed, which has gone down from, so here you go, these feats here, you can see they've gone 320 to get your tier 4 instead of 360. So they've all come down by 20 or 40 points roughly. The relative gaps between each level are the same, so you're still going to need to get slightly more to get your tier 4 than to get your tier 3. And then the next thing is the 1 second faster cap speed. So I think I mentioned this before, that all the cap speeds now are 4.5 seconds, regardless of how many players you have on the point. So that is hopefully sort of a whistle-stop summary of the changes. And now I'm going to introduce our guests. So we have today a bunch of competitive players from one of the top teams. I think we're going to have some more people show up soon. Hopefully, Blitz and Jarl and a few others will come along. So these guys are in. Clutch needs no introduction. Part of Minimeisters and Team Nemesis, but I'll let you go and give yourself your own introductions now. So go ahead.
Let you start.
Want me to start?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, for those of you who don't know who I am, which I'd be very surprised if you don't, I'm Clutchmeister. I've been a streamer in the For Honor directory since like summer of 2017, and I've been playing the game competitively ever since For Honor came out. I've won more tournaments than any other player in the game. Captain of the Team Nemesis and also of Minimeisters, two of the best teams in the game at the moment.
All right. And who else we got here? Normie?
Well, I myself, I'm not in one of the big Dominion series teams because I am underage, but I am part of Minimeisters, which is one of the best, if not the best teams, along with Antonio, who will soon introduce himself as well, and Totmine, who is at work.
Oh, sad times. Getting that money, making that bread, etc. Antonio, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Antonio. I'm part of Minimasters as well. I'm a professional For Honor comp player. Started like 2 years ago, and yeah, I'm still playing For Honor competitively nowadays.
Also on the range.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
Also
Not for long.
great. And we've also got, we're going to have some more comp players coming in a moment, but we've also got some casters with us as well. So, Norgoz, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Norgoz. I'm a content creator and caster with For Honor. You've seen me do the official / unofficial shows for the qualifiers of Dominion Series, and I've been around the block for a while, and I'm happy to be here today.
Thanks. And finally, other than myself, of course, we've got Verbalosity.
Hello. Yes, I am one of the few cabal of people that like to work in the hell known as working on For Honor tournament production. I've been a commentator in the scene for about good 4 or 5 years now. And yeah, that's about it, really. I'm one of the people who work in production and commentary. That's about it, really.
Awesome. And last of all, we've got myself. I am a. Oh, actually, no, not before last of all. I've got over here. We've got Vein coming in, who is a comp player. Did that work? Why is the draggy not working?
Discord being a dick.
Discord being a. I can't scroll down far enough for it to be for me to be able to drag
One by one. One by one.
Hang on
Yeah.
a minute, I've got him.
Okay, I don't know. It's just not letting me drag him out for some reason.
Hang on, I think I have drag powers on this server.
You should do.
Boom.
Oh,
There we are.
there you go.
There's Vein.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Oh wow, he's loud. One sec.
Hello, Vein.
Speak.
Hello, hello.
Okay, this is better. This is better. This is better.
Another competitive player, VeinNoir is here. Do you want to give a quick introduction for yourself, Vein?
I'm VeinNoir. I'm an NA comp player. And I've been playing competitive for about 6 months. I'm still fairly new, but I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. And yeah, I guess I'll carry on my own introduction. I am Filthy Spaniard. I'm a moderator on Reddit and my finger in a lot of For Honor pies, but just a general busybody.
I don't think moderator on Reddit should be the face.
It's my greatest achievement, yeah. And yeah, I help make educational content, and I help run the dojo, which of course you're all listening to. So I probably should know who I am. All right. Well, shall we from now go on? We'll go around and we'll just each player can give their. We'll go players first, and then we'll give the spectators give it like a quick. I don't know, quick summary of your overall opinion and your biggest single like or dislike. You know, take a few minutes to talk, each of you.
We'll go top down. Antonio, you begin.
So main issue with testing grounds. Same as last testing grounds they did with Dominion changes. I feel like the cap speed shouldn't be locked at a certain amount of seconds, even though you have like multiple people on a point. That makes a lot of issues with the game that we're gonna talk about later. Another issue is like the way the renown works right now. I feel like you get rewarded not as much as you should be rewarded when you defend a point or when you kill everyone in an enemy team in a specific amount of time, which is basically ace renown. I feel like that removing ace renown was a pretty bad choice. And other than that, I think one thing that one of the main issues right now is the fact that middle lane is too much of an important point compared to A and C, for example, on a map like Citadel, because of the way the mid lane works with minion giving like 2 renown per kill of minion, and also the point giving 2 points per second. That also influences a lot the way the game is played, because you're gonna see a lot of players running mid instead of trying to fight a lot on points. They will try to get their tier 4s from farming mid as soon as possible, and then they will try to contest the point to get even more renown, because defending points don't give as much renown as they used to do before because of the removal of defender renown. So that's basically it for me.
Clutcher?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much to add after what Anton originally mentioned. One of the big problems with the TT I found was just like obviously like a lot of the standardization of Renown was good. Like obviously we've been calling for a lot of certain aspects of Renown to be standardized for a long time. You know, like Renown generation from minions, boosting, like differences for assists, kills, and like all these kind of things. Like we've wanted these to be standardized for a long time, but there's obviously been some other questionable changes, which has either resulted in the overall like skill ceiling of the game mode being reduced, and also just the general not just fun in terms of playing the game mode, but also, in my opinion, fun of spectating the game mode. Like for example, with how they've changed like general point generation for like for example, like how many points mid generates now, like how it literally generates the same amount of points as side points do whilst boosted without even factoring in minion farm. Like it's basically kind of reintroduced almost the mid meta where you want someone farming mid as much as possible, because in the TG, if you had someone farming mid, you generated such an insane amount of points where you could either come back from a point deficit or build up a huge point deficit. And without Defender Renown being a thing, it led to situations where you could just. I mean, there was actually one game. Was it the winners finals or was it grand finals? Where I think it was winners finals, where we had flipped each other's home points on Citadel, I think it was. So like we lost our home, they lost
Yeah,
their
yeah.
home, and me playing Griffin, I literally just kept running into the point they had captured just to stall point generation, and I didn't care if I died on the enemy point anymore, because instead of trying to think about like my positioning on the point, and then once I got low, starting to think about disengaging, so I didn't give any defender renown, I didn't have to worry about that any longer. So positioning, like monitoring my own health, monitoring my position on the point, staying close to point exits, like all that just goes out the window. And instead, I don't mind continuously pushing onto the point to stall point generation, whilst my team just goes and pushes mid and just farms mid and just gets a ton of point generation. So the skill ceiling of the game mode definitely got reduced quite heavily in the recent TG, which I'm not a huge fan of, because I feel like something like Defender Renown, it's the actual concept of it isn't a bad idea. It's the rewards it currently gives on live, as well as the disproportionate rewards you get based on class. Like for example, compare like the amount of Defender Renown an assassin gets versus a Vanguard, for example. It's absolutely insane, like the difference. Like if you have an early team fight on a point you control and it's like a 3v3 or a 4v4 and Vanguards get like all of the kills, well, you've pretty much lost the game because of the amount of renown you get. Versus if you have an early game 4v4 and you have assassins landing every single one of the kills, well, yeah, you're going to have a slight lead on renown, but you're not even going to be close to having like a game-winning renown advantage, because if an assassin gets 4 kills in a 4v4 on a point, they're literally getting the exact same amount of renown as like a Vanguard or hybrid would for a single kill. And I feel like that's how some of the changes in the recent TG have come across. It's like they knew certain things were a problem, like Defender Renown, but they just thought Defender Renown in general was a bad idea and just completely removed it. And this has just ended up reducing the skill ceiling, and it's allowed. Like, I don't feel like just mindlessly pushing the enemy point, because that's literally all I did. I even said at one point in the game, I said to like Normie and Anton and Toe, I was just like, I'm just going to keep pushing the enemy point. I don't even care. Like, I literally just straight up said, I'm just going to keep pushing the enemy point no matter what, just to stall point gen and just let them continue pushing mid, getting the point generation. And I feel like just the fact that that's possible without any kind of thought in terms of what renown I'm giving the enemy team, what the situation is on the point itself. Like they could have had literally 3 to 4 people on the point, and I still was going to go there just to stall points. I didn't have to factor in like, oh, okay, there's only one person there now, but 2, maybe 3 people could rotate in. This could result in a lot of defender renown being given. Like all of this thought process just went out the window. I just didn't care, and I just made a brain dead decision to just go there because of the state of the game. There was no like deeper thought involved behind it, which is something that I felt in this TG was a big problem as well. Like from a more competitive viewer's standpoint, like not not a casual player standpoint, is that it just really didn't have the same like depth and
Same depth and complexity. So I guess if we could take a single sort of sentence summary, would be something along the lines of, you feel that the TG changes have reduced the overall depth of the game mode. Less.
Yes, and it also has kind of encouraged mid farm again, which
Yeah.
like mid should be an important point, but the thing is, on live, it is an important point already. Like you always want to capture it before pushing. Say you're double capped on side points and you're going into those double 2v2s. Like you always want to get mid back because it still generates more points than the other points if you can actually hold it. It's just that obviously Defender Renown is overpowered in the current live game. And again, like I said, Defender Renown isn't bad. It's just that the amount of renown given for Defender Renown on live is just too much at the moment. It's what leads to snowbally games. You should have an advantage for winning fights, especially because it's like the enemy team dying on the point. That is a mistake from those players, right? They have the power. Like if they're like 50% HP, or even if they're 100% HP, but they can see their team are starting to lose badly, then they could start to disengage. They could start to move. But like the higher health players can start peeling for the lower health players, so they can start to get off of the points. Like it's all things that are in the player's control, and it adds extra skill to the game. Defender Renown is a great thing to have in the game. It's just you don't want to have it be such a game-winning thing. Like a single like 4v4 on an enemy point can decide a game because you're literally giving almost. You can theoretically be giving something insane like 400 renown. If a Vanguard gets like 4 kills on a home point, you shouldn't be able to get 400 renown from a single team fight. It's a case of the values not being tweaked enough, not a case of that particular mechanic is bad.
Okay, well, we'll get to something because I will talk a little bit in a second about what the devs' aims were. But first, let's hear from Normie and then Vein, and then we'll move on to spectators. We've also got Danko and Kyle here. I'm not sure if they've been watching or participating much in the recent testing grounds, but if you want to hop in with anything, just go ahead.
Well, I mean, basically what Clutch and Antonio said, but what I wanted to mention is like mentioning all of it a bit more simple and blunt for some other people. Basically, right now in current TG or last TG, as TG is not live anymore, you can even say that you're being rewarded more for losing. A very common situation in fours right now is a team holding both side points but not holding mid. And you're forcing people to split up and 2v2 you or whatever else. And in TG, whenever you'd get 2 side points, you're like, okay, I'm gonna leave mid and they're gonna have to push us. Well, instead what they did is they just sent one guy to farm mid, which generated insane amount of points and got that person tier 4 in like 4 minutes, 3 minutes even. And then the rest of the 3 people just rushed the point and kept aping a point because both teams got the same amount of renown for contesting, 36 per second. No, not per second, per
30
minute. Wasn't it 36 in TG?
It was in the first one, and they've changed it in the second one. So in the second one,
Whatever, everybody gets the same renown.
Oh no, you're right. Sorry, it's 36 per. It was 42 in the first one. It's 36 in the second one.
Yeah, so you have everybody getting the same renown there, while you are getting a renown advantage for one person and a insanely huge point advantage for your team. And then you can just switch the person in mid, and you're keeping an advantage forever, while nobody can do anything, because if the guy that's boosting the other one of your points, the guy mid is gonna cap it. Basically, you're put in a really bad situation. You're being punished for winning and having 2 points capped. That's one thing, and yeah, I mean,
So we
like I
just,
said,
right?
You
like I
actually
said,
reminded me of something, Normie, when you were talking. Is like one thing we also really didn't like about the TG is that it's already kind of, I wouldn't say a problem, but it's something you probably notice happens at least sometimes on live. Is that ever since they nerfed the healing on points, it's a lot more common where like you can get situations where like a team can end up winning a fight, capturing a point, but then respawners can end up coming in on full health, and the people who just captured the point are actually, they don't have full health, so they're stuck in a situation where the enemy team might actually sometimes end up in a favorable position because they died first, because they're able to come back in with full health to challenge the low health players. And with the changes to how quickly you capture points on TG, it exacerbates this problem even further, because now you don't have situations where you might quickly win a fight, cap a point, and then be forced to fight another team fight
without full HP. Now you might not even capture the point. So it happens a lot more frequently where if you, let's say you're fighting on Overwatch, right, where like a regular rotation will be
I mean,
something like
let's not give situations. We'll do that because there's a segment for everything, for every single aspect.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
we can go.
yeah, because
Yeah.
like I have some stuff to mention about that as well, but we'll talk about it when it's time. Biggest flaw for me, like I said, being punished for losing, for winning, and getting more points for losing, and on to Vayne.
So yeah, on to Vein.
Okay, so the biggest issue for me was probably the Defender Renown, just because there were multiple fights that I had participated in where we just continuously pushed the enemy point, and we were never punished for it. In most cases, we would end up ahead on Renown instead of being behind, and we probably lost 2 or 3 team fights on their home point.
Yeah,
And just
definitely know.
continuously pushing, we would end up ahead on hard points, either equal or ahead on Renown, and we would end up winning the match, and it honestly just wasn't fair.
Fair enough. Okay, so if I can, if I'll quickly summarize the points from everybody, we had Antonio saying that mid is too important. Clutch saying that the skill ceiling has been reduced. Normie saying that you feel punished for winning, and sorry, punished for winning. And Vane saying that sometimes it feels unfair that you're getting boosted, even if you're actually losing. Which I guess is the opposite, the inverse of what Normie said. So now I think we'll go on quickly on to the casters and spectators, and we'll give a quick, same kind of thing, a quick opinion from you guys. Start off with Norgoz.
All right, so a lot of what's been said is going to be some of the things that I'm going to kind of agree with. But do you want us
You should
to hear
really,
from?
sorry,
Give a like a what it looks like to you
yeah,
as a spectator.
as a spectator, yes. I want to hear your opinion on how the game was how the testing grounds were to spectate, how they were as a cast. So if you could say, if there was less interesting stuff you could say, or more interesting stuff you could say, that kind of thing.
I think overall, just in terms of watching games, there was in a lot of cases there was more of a point spread for, like, as an example, the one match that we're watching now. If you're watching live or watching the VOD, there's a much bigger point spread in a lot of cases where it seems like it really shouldn't have come down to that. Where if it were on live, the games might have been a lot closer. I think there is something to be said in regards to. I know we don't want to get too much into goals, but like if the goal was to bring more focus on to backcapping and mid lane and fights and encouraging more fighting, we are seeing a lot more team fighting, and there is something to be said about, as a spectator or as somebody who's watching, that I seems like we might be seeing maybe more team fights because, as some of the players have stated, there's a lot more backcapping attempts that are being attempted. So there is some interest in regards to that, where you can kind of say, oh well, there's constantly something going on. There could be interest there, but I think the meat and potatoes of that is kind of lost in a sense when you have the way that the points and the renowns are spread out there. So I think, as a caster and as somebody who watches these games, I would like to see. I think that my biggest issue with it is in regards to, like, I think something that's been mentioned is defender renown, because you would see, you could see potentially large point swings uh that could be completely match defining based on uh, certain, based on team fights, in the mid or later portion of the match, that could completely turn everything around. And I think that the points and taking away defender renown entirely completely made that null and void, and they kind of overcompensated in that regard. So there is some points that can be a little more interesting, I guess. I mean, at a glance, but in the grand scheme of things, when you kind of zoom out and say, oh well, we've been seeing this team fighting going on constantly, but like on Harbor, we had one match that took several minutes before one of the C point got capped. And that can be interesting at a glance to say, oh, well, who's going to actually get this point? But at the end of the day, does it really matter? And I think that's where you start to zoom out and say, okay, well, whoever gets this is, in a sense, is going to still be at a disadvantage. Are they going to be able to heal for a couple ticks? Yes. Are they going to immediately get rotated on? Yes. So, and who's going to get the bigger benefit? The team who lost.
Yeah.
So
Okay, fair enough. Verb, your time to shine.
Yeah, fortunately, between everyone here and then Goz, most of the relevant points I could say have been said, so I won't repeat. The only thing I will add is that the changes given to the midpoint and then the fact that Defender Renown is basically been gutted, combined with healing being nerfed, like Clutch mentioned, has resulted in a scenario where someone with enough experience in watching the game or playing the game, watching one of those VODs, could see the initial, like, first fight where people meet. I could blindfold them, and they probably could commentate the rotations coming in. It's going to get that predictable with
Yeah.
this current setup because it is like for example, as Clutch mentioned, you just brain dead unga bunga into the points every time there's a death because there's no penalty. So you see the same thing over and over again, and you end up getting that result of the oh hey, welcome back everyone. We are now at minute number 4 of people fighting here on C Point on Overwatch. I'm fairly sure I'm going insane. It's this particular setup with the testing grounds is just going to cause repetitive fights over and over and over again.
Okay,
It's boring.
that's quite interesting. I mean, just it seems so. It's an interesting to contrast the sort of predictable nature of the minute-to-minute gameplay versus potentially in the past predictable nature of
The
they
macro.
want this the whole match is decided after the first team fight, that kind of thing. So I guess I'll give my perspective as a spectator and caster. I would completely 100% agree with the sort of endless team fights going on for a very long time can be a bit draining even to watch and commentate, and there is much less in terms of interesting rotations, a sort of much less macro play. But there are definitely some good aspects as well in terms of the overall outcomes of matches. The score seems a lot closer on almost all of them, so there's more of an opportunity for upsets, which is maybe unfair, but it's a bit more exciting. And there are you do get some weird things happening which you wouldn't have seen as much in previous. I saw quite a few times when people would run into a point just on their own and fight a 1v1 on a point because they're trying to stall, and you never really see that in previous Dominion because stalling or fighting on 1v1 is just so risky. You'd eventually die and then you'd feed Defender Renown, that kind of thing. So sorry. Yeah, I would say my overall feeling is it's potentially more exciting but less interesting. So I guess that comes in similar kind of feel to the what you said about the skill ceiling being decreased. There's less to talk about in terms of this person is doing this really interesting play right now, or this is a really really smart rotation, because I guess there's less opportunity for that thing, those kind of things to happen.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, but I can easily counter that point by saying where, like, if they wanted to encourage a situation where, points weren't as important and they wanted to encourage these big team fights, well then why not just introduce a pure team deathmatch mode that isn't point based?
Yeah.
Why try to reduce the relevance of points in a capture and hold game mode if you just want team fights? They could just add like a 4v4 team deathmatch mode if that was the case, and I can also guarantee that it probably wouldn't be very successful, because whereas team fighting does have a skill ceiling in this game, like Dominion, it's a very skillful mode because of the combination of all of its elements, not just because of one particular element, right? Like, for example, how we've always said how 1v1s are just, there is a skill in 1v1s, but it's probably the least overall like skillful. It's got the lowest skill ceiling of all the different game modes, but it's still a part of 4v4. Like 2v2s has always been said it's more difficult than 2v2s. 1v1, sorry, it's got a higher skill ceiling, but again, it's not as, it's not got as high of a skill ceiling as Dominion because you have all these other aspects to it. You have the ganking, the anti-ganking, rotations, very important. Knowing when to protect points, knowing when to push points, knowing when to, hold, say, A and B, knowing when to push the C point knowing when you should potentially risk losing a point because it's actually more beneficial for your team, like all these things. So like, yeah, you can say that they want to encourage more team fighting, but if that's the case, then I mean, you
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing that in a capture and hold game mode. They should literally just create a team deathmatch.
Fair enough. And Kyle also commented in this, saying that he agrees that they're taking away aspects of outthinking the other team and making the entire game mode more mechanical, removing the strategic element to rotations and stuff. So, but it's a good point you mentioned that asking if the devs' intention was to see more team fights, because what we don't really know about that much is what the devs' aims were for the changes, and I think it's a useful thing to talk about and think about, because if we are saying, oh, what we think is bad or what we think is good, we're coming from the perspective of players and competitors and casters might not actually want the same things as the devs, and the devs might have a particular image in mind of what they want the game mode to look like. Whether or not we agree with that's a good goal or not, it's still worthwhile thinking what their goals are, and then it might be possible to align the goals of the players and the devs in a way that's not conflicting, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So for that sense, we have got. I mean, I don't think I want to show them again because we'll just be watching the old things. But we have seen the Warriors' Dens when they've talked about when they reveal in the season 3 reveal and in this season 4 reveal, where they talked about their aims for the testing grounds and what the different testing grounds were doing. So I'm going to quickly summarize what those things were, what things they said. So the first thing they said is they wanted to make renown gain easier to understand and more predictable and not different across the classes, which I think we can all say that even if it's even with the removal of defender renown is simplification too far, that it's certainly easier to understand how renown works. Would anybody disagree with that, or do you think it's more complicated now?
I mean,
It's definitely not more complicated now.
yeah.
It's way more simple.
Yeah.
So I think if that's their goal, then they've gotten successful in that regard.
Fair enough. Not necessarily a good goal, of course. I'm just trying to talk about what their goals are, and not necessarily if they're good or not. We can talk about that in a little bit. So the next thing they definitely said that they wanted to encourage back caps and contesting. We certainly have seen that it encourages contesting an awful lot. I think the question I have about this is, is backcapping the same as backcapping is not the same as contesting. Like if you're
No.
encouraging contesting a point versus encouraging capturing a point, those are two very different things. And so it's a little bit confusing for what the devs have said, and they said they want to encourage backcaps and contesting. Those are two different things.
I think like a really another thing I kind of forgot to mention as well is that it's okay to like say, you know, they want to encourage contesting, so that's why they don't allow you to quickly capture points. But as you can see on this particular game we're watching right now, Harbor is a really small map. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're attackers or defenders, you can get to both of the side points quite quickly. And if you have a situation where like it's always going to be like 4.5 seconds to capture a point, it's going to be like on these smaller maps, you're going to get situations like this that just drag on forever. You're never going to be able to capture a point. Whereas a game, say like Citadel, where that actually has home, and you know, like you have a home point, you know, and it's more of a it's more of like you have your home points. It's not all split quite evenly across the points. Like you won't notice this as much on those particular maps. Like these changes actually affect the small maps a lot more. Like Harbor, like let's say I guess Overwatch, not quite to the same
Beachhead,
degree as
yeah.
Harbor, yeah, like Beachhead.
Yeah.
Like these maps where it's not as strictly like I guess linear is like
Yeah. That's the
best
term
way
I
I
would
can
use.
think of, like Sank Bridge, Citadel, like these maps, it's not going to be as big of a problem on these maps because the rotations take so much longer from respawns. It's not going to happen as often. But on maps like Harbor, like in this particular game, for example, like you've seen, like how long did it take them just to capture the C point? Was it like 3 minutes, I think, or something like that?
I think it
Longer.
might. That wasn't the
but
longest one we saw. So we saw a 7-minute capture at one
yeah,
point. It was
Yeah,
insane.
something like
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
So it's like it's almost like these particular changes are exacerbated even further on these more even small maps. So
That's
like
fine, we can
Yeah, like so it's almost like these changes might even add further imbalances and also bigger changes in the gameplay which might not have been intended across like the different size and design of maps.
That's a really good point, and definitely think it's something to think about. How does that mean? We can talk about that later. Maybe we think that means we should that the values of dominion should be different on different maps. For example, I mentioned respawn time is in one time earlier, but was in the cast. But on to the next thing they mentioned. I remember JC in particular mentioned this. They were saying that the strategy of holding home and holding your home point and controlling mid was very predictable, and I think he said he was tired of seeing them, but like I think they want to have a reduced emphasis on the old strategy of you hold home point and then control mid, which I think is interesting they mention it because I definitely feel that they've gone backwards in terms of that with how important mid is now in terms of it's the only avenue to gain points essentially because getting hard points from the side zones is so easy to stall out. So I'm not sure if they've achieved that goal. Would you think that the old goal, like the classic Temple Garden match where you take C and then you go and look after mid and you go back into C, do you think that strategy is still a valid strategy, or do you think that's dead?
I mean, in TG, it's not. In TG, the best thing to do is keep mid. Yes, just like before. Instead of keeping the point, you want to keep mid and contest the point. So basically backwards. As before, you would have contested mid and kept the point. Now you want to keep mid and contest the side point.
That's the point. Yeah.
But make
Okay.
sure the point is enemies.
Yeah. Okay, because then you get contesting easier, or
Yeah.
you want to lose. The last few things are potentially they wanted to make the game more interesting to watch and play, which I think whilst I think I mentioned that before, it's maybe more exciting in terms of closer, but not necessarily as interesting because less tactics to talk about. So if they're removing depth, then they're probably not going to be achieving those more interesting to watch and play goals. And the final one, I guess, is to improve the casual or matchmaking experience, because obviously the game is played very, very differently at the top level and the casual matchmaking level. And to a certain extent, I am concerned that this focus of basically the strategy of just pile into the enemy's points and don't care about contesting, that's a problem. That's sort of what that's a matchmaking strategy, isn't it? It's what players do in matchmaking. So if this is an intentional thing to make that the sensible strategy, as it were.
I don't think these changes made I mean, the only thing it did for casuals is extend their matches, I guess. Make the matches longer, even though
Not even that much.
I
because
mean,
if you
no,
think
we're
about
not
it,
talking RMM. We're talking the RMM.
yeah.
And the RMM
Yeah,
is just feeding into a point forever, which means, they won't have renown. The other team won't have renown either. It's just going to be another, 5 team fights before you reach the same point.
No,
Taylor mentioned... Sorry, go ahead,
yeah.
Anthony.
No, I remember playing TG with a few of my friends. I remember just us feeding, losing, even getting really bad KDs, 1 and 7, 2 and 7, 8, 2 and 8, and we just put someone on mid the entire game, and we would be able to put the other team in breaking while they were at 700 points or something like that, and we managed to win the game with such a bad performance. KD wise, and if MM is gonna basically is gonna end up being a place where who controls mid for the entire game wins, I don't think MM is gonna be as interesting as the devs think they're planning.
Yeah. Something that Natal was talking with me earlier about was how that, considering how low the actual gain of points is from a score, as it were, from the side zones, that the points from mid at the moment, it's not so much mid necessarily being important, but it essentially dictates the entire speed of the game. In the first week of the testing grounds, all these same issues with capture time and defender renown and so on were present, but the point from the points gained from mid was halved. and the matches went on way longer. I don't think we did a tournament with the first round of testing ground changes in the first, because last time they did week 1, then they changed it and they did week 2, and I think we did a tournament in the second week but not in the first week, so we didn't really have a chance to see if that same issue of focusing on keeping mid was as viable a strategy there, but I feel like it would have been. It's just the matches would have taken even longer. Any thoughts on that?
I have something to add. I don't know if it's exactly addressing exactly what you're getting at, but I think overall, I think that this kind of I think it further confuses and complicates the casual MM experience. And what I mean by that is, yes, I agree that MMO as it stands, there's a lot of, oh, let's go to, like, on live as an example, let's go to A point on Temple Garden. Well, it doesn't really make all that, make a lot of sense in a lot of cases. There's specific situations where you might do that. And this is something that would reward a lot of that gameplay. Like, okay, the enemy's got A point on Temple Garden, then you're just going to keep feeding on it. Well, there's no defender renown as a penalty. There's no there's actually more of a bonus to contesting than not. So I think that it in some ways it rewards bad gameplay. And I mean, if we're gonna that said, this is all based on our current understanding of what the meta and what strategy should be, at least on live, and whatever the devs have in mind for us may end up shifting all of that. But my point is that casual MM experience is a lot of, for lack of better terminology, a lot of just mindless gameplay, just running and pressing buttons and not really knowing what's going on. Having mid lane have so many points, cost as many points or gather as many points as it does, uh, that you're going to see a lot of MM experiences where it's literally just a flip of the coin. It is literally just a flip of the coin as to who's going to win and who's going to lose. Um, just who pushes the point the most, who happens to get mid first, because there's not a lot of focus on mid because there's a lot of players don't
Players
understand how.
ignore it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of ignored. So whoever gets mid first, eventually it might break itself, but at that point they might, oh, well, let's go clear this. Then you got this whole big slew of this whole army sitting there that's like worth 50 to 100 points that you saw down real quick. You got mid again, and then boom, you're you're still on top. You've actually, in a sense, been rewarded again because there's not a lot of awareness, and there's a whole lot of things that go into all of these things that we're talking about, because there is some. I know that the devs recognize that there are some flaws in the game with Dominion and other things that we're not really discussing today. But the mentality and the psychology of some players, you can't change. You can't change. And in this change in regards to renown gain and the point generation, I think in some ways is going to, like I said, it going to come back to my original statement, is I think it's going to confuse and complicate that MM experience and that MM situation, because as it stands on live, it's there's a lot of things, if you have defender renown, somebody throws their body on the point, they may not realize and understand, okay, well, I died. Well, what does that exactly mean? Well, it's kind of easy to see, well, this person's getting a bunch of renown for it. Once it's explained to someone, they can kind of see very clearly, okay, this is why you don't push the point. Whereas in testing grounds, it's the complete opposite. If I want my point, if I want my renowned, I want my feats, I got to get in here. I got to jump in here. I got to death ball. I got to. One of the devs mentioned something about death balling and how it was supposed to. I gotta go back here. I can't.
The lower cap speed was, sorry, the longer cap speed was reducing the prevalence of death balling, because it takes them longer to cap points and therefore longer to heal.
Yeah, so essentially trying to discourage death balling. If their goal is to discourage death balling, I think that they failed, because in my own personal playing experience in testing grounds, and my MMR is it's high, but it's low high. I'm just as likely to get brand new players as I am comp players. It's the wild west out here. And what I see is there was a handful of games where there was just death balling all the time. They were just running onto the point, whatever point we had, trying to stall it out. If we ever got a chance to clear mid, we would, but ultimately it was just constantly, all four people on one point, which was like, well, what are we supposed to do? Just leave? And at what point I kind of jokingly said, why don't we just leave the point, let them have it, and then turn around and run back onto it? Because that's exactly what this is encouraging.
But yeah, no, I definitely noticed in a few games which I played, a lot of the my uncoordinated teams were doing the Royal Rumble on one point and having enemies just run back in over and over again, and my tactical move was to go and run and contest the enemy's home point on my own, and then have all of these opponents who are just respawning, instead of running back to our home point, give my allies some time to heal by just getting myself in essentially a suicide run to take away the pressure from my enemies.
Mhm.
Not really. So if you want to make a tactic where your aim is to die, or the aim is to give up a point, or the aim is to distract like that, it's not really a very satisfying way of the game being. I just want to say hello to Blitz, who's come and joined us. Hello, Blitz.
Yo,
Yo, Blitz is. Do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
sure. I am Blitz.
Good
That's
introduction.
a super quick introduction, yeah. All right.
I
Just say your
follow the
team
main.
and what you do and that kind of
What'd you say?
stuff. Tell us about your team and your background in competitive and that kind of thing.
I came from console, and I moved to PC about a year and a half ago. I got on, and I was too young to participate, even though I did participate, and then I got found out for participating, being underage. So I got disqualified from that, and now I'm just waiting until I turn 18. And I participated in the TG Dom tourney like last weekend.
Yep, and you were with Vein. Your team came second. Congratulations. Awesome. Do you want to give a quick? Because I want to move on to the next few bits, but you can give a quick sort of sentence or two about your overall opinion and biggest single like and dislike and that kind of stuff.
I don't like how reactionary the game is for like top level play. I don't like how GBs are as strong as they are right now in top level play. I don't like how backlights are as strong as defensively as they are right now. That's about all for like 1v1s, because I think team fights are
It's
pretty
mostly
well done.
referring to
They're
the testing
revenge
ground
holding.
Dominions, but
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't like
good
how
points though. Good points, nevertheless.
I don't like the removable defender renown. It just makes it so you can just push points and stall the entire game. It's not very. It takes big strategic element away. I don't like it.
Okay. And right, so sorry, just quickly. Okay, so the next thing, right? We've talked a lot about given like some opinions on things. I just want to now. Now we've moved on to like talking about the things we didn't like. I would like to bring it out and do a bit of brainstorming and thinking about what problems the current Dominion has, what problems the testing grounds addresses, what problems aren't addressed, and then maybe trying to think of brainstorm some solutions to them, to the issues we have, and maybe examine
I
these
have
issues.
all of this already.
No, wait, was that right? No, like trying to think if there's which of these issues are symptoms and which ones are causes. So the first one I want to do is, what issues does current live Dominion have which aren't addressed by this testing grounds, and which are addressed by the testing grounds, other than I guess like the standardized renown stuff that we just the other stuff. Is there any other problems that current competitive Dominion has which we haven't touched upon that this testing ground also missed?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think
Doesn't-
so. The problem here is we've either had a band-aid fix for a problem, as in a fix that doesn't really fix much, just kind of changes the problem, or we're fixing problems that never existed.
Clutch,
Or
any thoughts from you?
or they're fixing problems by introducing even bigger problems, like the whole defender renown, replacing it with just
Nothing.
brainless
Testing
pushing,
renown.
not being pushed like punished, and yeah.
Okay.
So it's like they're not fixing an issue; they're just replacing it with an even bigger one.
Yeah. Something I want to mention as an issue, which they've not really talked about it as one of their goals, but it is something that I've noticed. I think has actually been slightly improved by the removal of. I mean, it's essentially snowballing and how predictable matches are in general. Obviously, with the biggest contributor to that in the past was defender renown, and that you'd win your first few fights and that would give you control of the map, and then you'd win your next fight and you have defender renown, and you've got massive feat advantage, and then you win the game. So the sort of snowballing nature and sort of win more nature of feats, I think, has been somewhat improved, but in a weird indirect way by removing how much how reward that everybody gets their feats regardless, just because by you contesting and stuff. Do you think that that more flat sort of uniform gain of renown is a good thing, or do you think that it's good to have matches that are more snowball, and you think that renown should be a very important tactical element to intentionally get more of and win that way?
I mean, it's a capture and hold game, and sure, you can play a capture and hold game without an external factor like renown. But if renown wasn't a thing, then you'd have a problem that everybody hates, and that is the same 4 characters, never to be changed with anything else. Because right now we have characters like I'll take for example Warlord, who is not great, got nerfed pretty hard with crushing charge, but is still usable because of his feats mostly. If he had bad feats, then not as much. Same with Kong. Kong is average in TG, but I wouldn't say he's exactly viable or like an off pick because his feats are borderline useless. And since feats decide how viable a character is, it's sort of good to have like, so we have wider pool of characters that are viable. At the same time, I think it's good for a game like this to have an external factor.
Okay, so you're in favor of external factors.
I am very in favor.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
I honestly also think that like a team that manages to win team fights, or like manages to win more than one team fight, even if it's at the beginning, if it's at the end of like a game or in the middle, should be rewarded with either like a good amount of renown. I'm not saying like like a skip from tier 1 to tier 4, of course, but I'm saying like from tier 1 to tier 3, for example. If you win multiple team fights, I'm talking about one single team fight, and or defending a point from multiple enemies coming, like not from like the same respawn timer. So like they keep on pushing. Okay, you have low HP, but you still manage to like defend the point, so you get rewarded with defender renown, which is also defending the point. You gain renown, which means you gain feats, like for example Juggernaut, that keep you help you to contest the point, and healing feats, for example, like soothing for JJ, that is really important in situations like team fights, or damage feats as well. And like the aspect that helps a lot in like team fights is feats for sure, because it can determine how long a team fight is gonna take. Is it gonna be long? Is it gonna be like really fast? Is it gonna like take tier 4 to clear like the entire enemy team, or is it gonna take only like the effort of the team to just like outplay the other team and do damage that is needed to push a backup, or just get the team fight finished? So
I
feel
also
like
think the game would be very, 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 very incredibly boring to watch and play without
yeah,
feats.
definitely, yeah.
I agree, definitely. Without, I wouldn't want
mean,
the game to be without renown, without
The
feats
comp,
completely.
the comp scene has already tested Dom scrims with no feats, and
Oh
as you
yeah,
said,
yeah. But I was
they were
more
very
thinking,
uninteresting.
yeah. But I was more thinking not in terms of not having feats at all, but in the way that you sort of in the current testing grounds, everybody kind of gets feats as you go through the game at the same, roughly the same rate, regardless of how well you're doing.
Okay,
And so
okay. I want to
you end
go
up
on a
winning.
rant when I can. A small rant.
Go on then. Go
Okay.
on.
So, like you
Small
said,
rant.
everybody. Okay, I'll make it as small as I can. Like you said, in current TG, everybody gets their tier 4 at some point, more or less, unless you're quite bad.
Unless you're
Well,
shaman.
Get called out
that
here.
I don't think that should be the case. I don't think that, like, I don't remember who mentioned it. Maybe it was you, Span. Maybe it was someone else.
I think
Something
me.
like everybody unlocking tier 4 once it's double breaking or something of the
Yeah,
sort.
that's what I. Yeah, that's a
That
Spaniard thing.
is ooh, very
You
bad.
don't like.
Okay, I want to say right now in live, renown is a problem. I completely agree. I think the numbers are bad. Obviously, defender renown is way too much. Whatever, we went over it. But it plays well. Like the rules of it are good. They work out well. They like you have reasons to not push to do a branded push. You have reasons to contest a point. You have reasons to push after a team fight. It plays well. I just think the numbers are not good. And same for renown. Um, you rarely see an entire team get their tier 4 by the end of a game that is played between two good teams, two very good teams. If there's a big skill gap, yeah. Otherwise, you'll see one, you'll see maybe two, and in a scenario of say a lot of team fights going on, or just a 1 in 5 game, yeah, you'll see 3 people with tier 4s. But
Especially on maps like Sanctuary.
it works well in the sense that you get your tier 4s at a good point in the game, not too early and not in last team fight, and well, that doesn't really matter, but you don't get them too early, and you also get them based on how good you're doing.
Okay, so you like the being rewarded by the game rewarding you for playing well.
Yes.
Okay. Any other opinions against that, or
No, I agree. I was just gonna say, like, you were saying how like they wanted to get rid of snowballing and stuff, but Defender Renown isn't. This I've already said this at least twice. It's not Defender Renown that's causing the snowballing. It's poor values that is causing the snowballing. It's just Defender Renown being too high. How many times have you seen a game where an assassin gets like, let's say there's a 4v4 on a point and literally one team kills every single enemy player on their own point, but an assassin gets all 4 of the kills and then they lose the game because of the renown advantage. I've literally never seen it myself. All the scrims I've had, all the times I've played, I've never seen games lost because assassins have gotten kills on points. Because it's only 5 renown per player, which it's like it's enough to give you an edge. Let's say you do win a 4v4 fight, then your team essentially has 80 renown, like 20 between 4 players, which it's nice to have, but it's really not that much at all.
yeah,
So it's not defender renown that's causing the snowballiness. It's just overpowered amounts of renown from certain classes that are causing it. And not only that, but you could still maybe argue that you could still get snowball situations. If you ever get a point in TG that we just had where one team just gets to hold mid for a long period of time, and one guy just gets to sit on the mid lane farming minions, because it's a lot more encouraged to do so now, like, and the points generated from it's so good. The amount of renown you can get from the point, like, I've literally seen scrims in TG. Like, Normie sent me screenshots where both teams have like a conk who's like 4-3, whilst the rest of his team have like over 10 takedowns, but the conk's top of the scoreboard because he just sat in mid the entire game.
Top of the scoreboard by like 200 and on.
Yeah.
although at least with Conk, his feats aren't going to make a gigantic difference.
It feels like we're back in season 1.
Yeah,
most
but
likely.
like that could
Yeah,
easily be changed to a character that does have good feats. You know, you could
like a Nabushi
could-
or whatever.
Yeah, or you could have a raider in mid, and then you've got a raider who's going to have fucking Fury and Fire Flask, like fucking
times,
3-4 minutes into the game before the enemy team, and just instantly.
Yeah,
wins the team fight.
we did see. I think there was one match in the tournament where that we saw. I'm not sure it was used 3 times, but it was available 3 times. So Fire Flask was available 3 times, which is kind of nuts, really.
Oh yeah, I wanted to
So
ask.
yeah, so like, give me. I saw a person saying in chat that like the issue of like people staying on B for a long time is Conqueror more than a TG problem. I feel like the problem is like just the point in general, how the point works, giving too much renown to like people that just press light.
Oh yeah,
light,
I was gonna
keep
say
on going.
I wanted to keep in mind I don't think mids changed. I think the fact that you do not get like the point gen as much as you did before is what's making mids overpowered, because it's not like they made the mid gen like 1 million.
Yes, actually, that was actually what I wanted to come on next to. Was we've talked a lot about the problems, and if we're looking for solutions, we need to think about which are the symptoms, the things that we don't like, and which are the causes of those things. So, for example, with the mid lane, we're saying how mid lane is now more important. Well, this is actually not necessarily that the mid lane itself is more important. It's that the side points are less valuable in terms of generating points and renown. So that mid ends up being important. But the answer isn't for them to go, okay, mid lane is too important, we need to nerf mid again, because actually the problem's not coming from mid, it's coming from the fact that the side points aren't rewarding in
They're
terms
just
of
too slow.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, on live, the problem is Defender Renown is more powerful than the extra point gen you get from holding mid versus A and C. But on TG, obviously, with no Defender Renown and the fact that any class can get the same amount of renown off of minions, mid all of a sudden has a much bigger focus again. Because like mid, it's like I said, mid isn't pointless on live. It's not like you just don't care about mid. Its whole purpose on live is the fact it does generate points faster than any other point. But it's just the fact that that potential huge snowball from the overpowered like defender renown values from Vanguards, hybrids, and heavies, that's what causes the problem.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about
I
defender
think
now.
Defender now would probably resolve this issue.
So well, actually, the thing is, so one of the things they mentioned on the stream, the second one, they said they actually tried putting 5 defender renown in, and it felt like everybody got their renown way too fast just by playing the game normally. At least that was their words.
I don't see that.
Yeah, it is
personally.
hard to. It is hard to.
Because I've even debated whether 5 renown would even be enough for people to be properly discouraged. Because the only time 5 renown would even have any like realistic effect on the outcome of a game is if there was just constant 4v4s happening on points. Like let's say you look at what's happening on live right now, and like the typical strat is like splitting 2 and 2 onto 2 different points, or you have 2v2 on 1 point, and then you have another 2v2, like 2 players who try to stop the other 2 from rotating in to help, so you 2v2 off of a point. Let's say you do that with a system that has 5 renown across every class. Well, if let's say you lose both 2v2s on both side points, well, you're literally giving 20 renown. Like, literally, you're giving 20 renown to 2 different sets of players. Like, that is never going to win a game, and that is not going to help you get feats quickly. So, like, honestly, I don't even know if 5 renown would be enough for a defender renown value. It would be better than what we have now, obviously, because, yeah, like I said, those big 4v4 fights might still add up in the long run. But it's still not a lot when you look at how the game is currently played.
So what I wanted to say, because they've talked about how defender renown, well, at least according to the devs, that even 5 was too much. I agree with you that it's very difficult to agree with that or to understand that if we haven't actually had a chance to try out different defender renown. So all the testing rounds have none.
Technically, we did have a little teaser, didn't we? Because I can't remember which event game mode it was, but there was.
You're right.
By Daylight.
The Dead by Daylight one.
Yeah, that had 5 defender renown.
Yeah, and that never made a difference. It was because obviously I think killing the killer gave like a shit ton of renown, and that's what always resulted in beats. I never once killed people on points in that DBD game. We're thinking, oh fucking hell, this 5 defender renown per kill. This is fucking broken, boys. Getting our fucking T4s after 11 minutes. Oh god damn. I never once found myself thinking that.
Yeah, I think a proper TG with like defender renown standardized for every class, and like also renown standardized for every class, no matter the class that you're playing, you still have the same renown, would be like the actual proof if the devs are right or not about the people getting their renown too fast. Because having like a another character that goes around without any like objective, just to kill people and just to give them renown if he's low, doesn't really reflect
it's not
the
like
outcome of a game.
Absolutely, I agree that the DBD, we shouldn't be taking balance lessons, big balance lessons from the Dead by Daylight mode on for Dominion. But the thing that I was slowly trying to get myself towards was a lot of this is, so we're talking about defender renown, but I want to sort of dig into what defender renown actually means in terms of the game. So defender renown means you get your feats more, which means you get an advantage, which allows you to win more. Essentially, it boils down to defending zones isn't rewarding enough. Not necessarily. I want to sort of move it away just from the sort of rigid thinking of just defender renown, but the reward for defending defending a zone in general. So one of the things I've been talking about with different people is imagining if, for example, instead of defender renown, you got defender score. So you killed an opponent on a point, and your team gets 25 extra points from killing your opponent. At that point, does that discourage the strategy of running in and mindlessly contesting enough? So let's say the point and renown advantage you're getting from one person farming mid is offset by the score advantage, or is it built up by the score advantage? Sorry, is this defender score giving you enough to compensate for that?
Well, I mean,
Well,
it
the
is,
game
it
is
is,
getting
it is,
tweets
but there
more.
is a different problem that comes up when you do that. We talked about the 2v2 scenario where people hoarding points. If you are in that situation as the team losing, so you just have mid and have to push 2 points, you're taking an incredible risk of like normally right now you'd feed renown, you'd get about 4 failed pushes before everybody has tier 4, and it's GG. You can tell that it's GG because you don't have feeds, they do. You don't have points, they do. In this situation, yeah, they won't give feats, but they're gonna get like 4 times the points. So instead of being able to do 1 push, fail it, and then win the next one, you fail 1 on both ends. So 2 lost 2v2s, 1 on each point, and it's basically GG right there.
You lose 100 points if all 4 of your players died on.
I mean, yeah,
for example.
I'm just saying that I think they're not accurate values, like 1 team fight. But say if it was 10 team fights now, it would be like 4 afterwards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But the question not necessarily about the numbers, more about the approach of thinking about not instead of renown necessarily being the rewarding aspect, but the actual score of the game. Because one of the things that I've been banging on about is thinking that the fact that removing defender renown has caused such a big problem in the overall meta of the game, where you just mindlessly push points, isn't necessarily. It shows that without renown, defending points is intrinsically not very valuable. You don't get much in the way of score. You were compensated with the renown, but itself, like killing somebody on your point, it doesn't give you anything. It gives you like 5 score per kill, slightly more if you're on a kill streak. And I've then been thinking that defender renown is somewhat more of a band-aid fix for just the intrinsic unrewarding nature of defending points. And is there something that can be changed that can make
I mean, we
that
agree
can make-
that right now defending a point is rewarding, very rewarding. In life, I mean.
yeah, because of the defender renown.
Okay,
right?
and without it, it's not rewarding at all. So there's no.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's no.
So
So without
why
so
do all of this? And okay, remove defender and say add in something else. Why go through all of that, which will cause more problems in the end? Because like I said, there's gonna be stuff of, so there's no point in defending a point. There will be now, but there won't be any point in pushing somewhere or pushing more than once. And stuff is just gonna be more problems. Why not just reduce the defender renown, which would be an easier fix with less that's
Effort,
literally the only thing.
Yeah,
10
no,
defender
fair
renown. What's the deal?
That's fair enough. I mean, that's a very good point. Like, why overcomplicate things? I guess the answer to that would
mean,
be if they wanted renown to not be a stand-in for score. Like
yeah,
we talked.
that's what I was about to say. I didn't quite finish. It was like, because obviously they can see that, and I've thought of that probably. So if they still gone through with this, it probably means that they have a different vision for what they want, and makes me think they're not even sure where they're going with it.
But do you think something like that would create similar tactical depth? Do
I
you
mean,
think
it create the same feeling of can't push a point forever. I would also create the same point of feeling of if we lose one team fight is GG. Obviously, exaggerating here, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
you could actually make the argument that giving score instead of giving defender score instead of defender renown could actually end up being more snowbally than the the defender renown, because obviously once, like, if you get feats really early on, that can be really, really hard to come back from when there's feats that are as powerful as things like Fury Flask, as Warmonger T4, Staggering Blows, Juggernauts, like all these really powerful feats. The thing is, if you start giving score for pushes, like obviously, you know, it can create problems. Let's say you lose A and C and you're forced into these 2v2s. If you lose those fights, then you could get into situations where the point lead ends up becoming borderline like impossible to come back from. In fact, even if you end up losing the side points, you might even encourage gameplay where you just sit 4 in mid and farm minions because you've got such a big point lead. You don't even want to risk giving that defender score to get back into the game.
Yeah, I mean, if it worked like Defender Renown and only counted for kills were actually on the point, then you could still, in theory, push and then roll off to die off the point, like we have with current defenders, for example.
I mean, I have,
Yeah,
I have,
but and also, like, you know how, for example, Defender Renown stops being relevant once the enemy team has all their feats. Defender Score would never stop being relevant. So you would always have to play around it. So, for example, like let's say you've gotten to the point where let's say you've got one team, you have the enemy team breaking, right? They're all sat on their home point, and then you have, let's say it's like 1,000 to 800 or something like this. It like there's already a situation on live where even if the other team isn't breaking yet, you don't want to push the enemy point because the points they get from just the kills themselves are going to push you into breaking. Problem is that if you introduce defender score, the score the enemy team needs to have to discourage you from pushing the point to try and close out the game becomes even lower. So like let's say if you're getting like 25 score per kill, then already at like 800 it's going to get risky because you have the normal points you get from a normal kill plus the 25 on top of each kill on the point, so you're going to end up with a bonus 100 if you win the 4v4 team fight, which is already going to make them 900 plus all the points you get from the normal kill. So you might find a situation where the other team just kind of wants to sit in mid and just continue farming and doesn't want to push the point, even if the enemy team only is only like 850 to 1000 or something like this. But you just don't want to take the risk. Whereas with Defender Renown, like I said, when you're that late in the game a lot of the time, if it's like, you know, 900 to 1000, Renown's usually pretty close. At that point, Defender Renown stops becoming a problem and you're more encouraged to actually go and push the points.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So it's in a way the decoupling of renown from, like, it's rewarding, but it's rewarding in a way that's not directly coupled to the actual outcome of the match. It's sort of there's a flexibility there, and once you get to your tier 4, it's the renown doesn't matter anymore. And once if you can always fluff up, you can always Raven Flask or Legion Flask, whatever you want to call it, and lose your tier 4. And so it's not actually, whilst it's an advantage, it's not so much an advantage that it can't be played around.
I mean, I was gonna say also just like a simpler thing. It's like you, like Clutch said, but simpler. Like you can catch up in renown, or you can sometimes, if you're really good, play it really well and get lucky, you can even play around the feats even though you're at severe disadvantage. Or like I said, you can come back and catch up in renown and then have a fair fight. You can't do that with points. You will never be able to do that with points. They're just permanent.
It's flat points. You can't do anything about that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, you can't. The only way to bring back point, you can't bring up hard points. You can bring back soft points is by taking the point, which is going to be rewarding hard points if you fail to do that. That's a good point.
It's just complicating things over and over again instead of like just keeping Defender Renown and just make the values a little bit more balanced. That's
okay. Fair enough. So there are a couple more bits and bobs that I'd like to sort of talking points I'd like to cover before we sort of bring in anybody else who wants to chat. I know Jules Slaff down there has been waiting to say something. We'll look into some questions. One of the things I'd like to ask about is this Testing Ground 2 and Testing Ground Week 2 from the last version. So the things that have changed in this Testing Ground versus the last Testing Ground are capture speed very slightly faster, and feats, you get them a bit easier. So they're kind of small things. In theory, they should be mitigating some of the changes should have made it a little bit, I don't know about the feats, but at least with the capture speed, should have made it a little bit better compared to the things we've been complaining about. But in practice, it seems that people are more down on they're less enthusiastic about this testing ground than they were on week 2 testing ground last time. Is that an accurate gauge of the of the feeling, or do you think
I mean,
it actually is worse this week than this time than it was last week too?
well, obviously it's not worse in that particular thing. Like, yeah, it's better. Personally, I haven't felt even the slightest difference between 5.5 and 4.5. But the problem was that everything else got worse. So it is worse than before. One thing got good and the rest got worse, basically.
We also didn't first TG had double XP, which forced people to play it because of XP.
I mean, we're not taking in player count.
Yeah, we're not really trying to talk about the scenario surrounding the testing ground, more just the actual content of it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's fair enough.
So I do think this version of it is worse. It plays worse. I can't really tell if we've made any progress from last one. Very slight progress.
We went a little bit down with the mid farm.
Yeah, I mean, we went down in some places and went up in.
So do you think that's? Did you try mid farming last time, or is it a case that the strategy has evolved now?
I mean, before you didn't get points from anything. So before the main problem was the endless match.
Yeah.
Now there's no endless match, but there is an endless fight and stupid amount of points on mid compared to everything else.
Okie dokie. So a few other things that I've got to mention. We've mentioned zone healing and how you feel rewarded for losing a fight because you get to come back at full HP whilst your opponents are still healing up. So that certainly is an unpleasant feeling. Do we think there's a possibility that this is intentional, almost catch-up mechanic from the devs? The idea being that if you, let's say you capture your home point, the enemy's home point, you can't hold it forever because they're going to be running in, and they'll eventually win that point by attrition just because of their faster respawns.
I mean,
is that something you think is intentional, or
if it is, then it's very poorly done because it works like that. You're eventually gonna get it, but then it just switches sides, and the other team is gonna keep pushing forever.
Fair enough.
What do I get by storing? Like, okay, I stored the point generation, but other than that, if the enemy team can just catch up my point advantage and renown advantage by just clearing mid, what's my point on running on like the other side of the map to just contest instead of farming mid and get my tier 4? That's also another issue. If like defending the point will generate a little bit of renown advantage, like 5, but even 5 is not that much, probably people will be more interested to push that point and try to keep it as much as possible. And like, of course, the attackers, which is probably the people that got backup, will try to get that point back. First of all, for healing. Second of all, because they want to get the defender on as well. If they want to get their point back to heal and all the thing.
Yeah. Do you think there should be the zone healing needs to be sped up, or?
I mean, not necessarily.
No.
Like, I don't think, like I said, yeah, it could be a good change, but there's no point in doing all of that when you can just fix everything so much, like with so much more easier fixes by just changing numbers. Like, I'll tell you 3 fixes for current problems right now that would make it, I think personally, obviously haven't tested, but I think would make everything infinitely better. Defender renown down to 10 from 30. Capture speed, I think should still be different based on players, just not 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think 1 and 2, like 1 person or 2 people or 1 people or, oh my god, I'm having a stroke. Okay, if there's 1 or 2 people on the point, it's say 4.5. If there's 3 or 4, it's like, I don't know, 2.5. Not a big difference, but enough of a difference to cap the point if you're fighting for your life with 4 people on there.
Okay.
And I thought there was a third, and that was
Is it now?
Yeah, Ace Renown. I don't think anyone ever complained about Ace Renown. I get that they removed everything with it, but Ace Renown wasn't a lot, and it was also very hard to get because it required a lot of team coordination, and was also a very good reason for the team losing to, stall that another 5 seconds while waiting for your teammate to respawn. So I think it added a lot to the skill ceiling.
Okay, that was actually something else that we discussed a little bit on the cast, but I didn't really have it mentioned in here. Talk about skill ceiling and mechanics to play around. Which do you think there are things they could add that are current sources of renown, or like, so for example, the one I was thinking about was kill streaks. So currently kill streaks give you more score, and they give you more renown for getting kills. It can up to double the amount of renown you get for getting a kill. Do you think that is something that's like an additional source of depth that they could focus on adding, designing towards tactics involving that?
I mean, wait, no, let me clear up. There was no killstreak renown in TG, correct?
No, killstreak renown still exists.
Did they change the values at all, or?
Nope, not really. Well, they changed it per characters. They're all the same. I think it's like,
Yeah, okay,
it goes from 8 to 20 now, or something like that.
I mean, I think we would have less impact with that being. I mean, basically, if you remove that, you need to adjust other things. If you don't remove it, you need to adjust that. It's like whatever you do, it won't be good unless you do something like on the other side. If you know what I mean.
Fair enough. Any other questions I've got here? Well, I guess we talked about this already, but it's not necessarily something. Oh, actually, this one I haven't mentioned. Okay, capturing points versus stalling points. So we talked a little about how the devs said they wanted back capping to be a thing, more of a thing, or to be less afraid of pushing points, or more incentivized to go capture points. But currently, we've seen that actually what you're really incentivized to do is stall points rather than capture them. Do you think that that's a distinction that should be made? Where's the balance made in terms of being entertaining and fun to play? Is it fun to stall points, or is it more fun to capture points? And
Hell no, it's not fun to stall points.
It's not fun to stall points.
I mean, you're not doing anything for the game or for your team, really. I mean, maybe for your team, but considering current TG, you're just going in the loop, so you're not actually even doing anything for your team.
Are we talking about light game or TG? Because a light game stalling actually means something. Because you're sacrificing defender now and giving your teammate something, like your team an advantage on another place of the map. Because while you're getting ganked on their home point, giving defender now, let's say a raider and a shinobi are ganking you, on the other side of the map, your teammates are either winning the 3v2, or they're resetting the middle lane and getting the advantage in mid lane, or trying to get their home point back, which is also really important. So you're sacrificing something to gain something else.
Yeah.
But in TG, you're not getting all these.
Yeah, you're taking the risk.
All this sacrifice, or you're not taking all this sacrifice. You're just going there, getting your feet slowly, and you're not rewarding the defenders of the point at all. You're just giving them like that 5 renown for the kill. That's it.
Fair enough. Tote Mine says in chat that actually he thinks stalling is really, really fun. So
it's because he's a Shiganshi main.
I mean, in live for sure. In live for sure. In the live game for sure. But not
yeah,
in
in live game, it's good to stall because, like Antonio said, you're donating, or well, that's what we call it. But you're giving away, you're putting a 30 defender renown on the line, and hoping that your team will do good and win a point to get that in as a trade. As in TG, you're not getting as much. You're getting very little, but there's no risk to it.
Yeah.
Of course, there is also like a plan before actually pushing. You need to make call outs. You need to coordinate with your team. You can't just go there and give defender renown. You have to plan. You have to organize. Instead, in TG, you just go there and you wait for your teammate to do something, and you just respawn and go there and wait for your teammate to do something, and the enemy cannot do anything about that.
Oh yeah, I wanted to clear up. It's not bad to cap a point in TG. There's just no reason to send another person there to actually cap it when you can just stall forever with less people.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It also feels like extremely unrewarding when you win 2 fights in a row and you're slightly up on renown, but you're down like 500 points. It's kind of AIDS.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. What else is there on my little docket? Okay, so this is one that Freeze mentioned, has been mentioned in his in his video recently, and was like talking about earlier as well. How, to what extent should the devs try to engineer the meta game, or the meta in terms of overall strategies for a game mode? So, for example, we saw that they were saying in the Warriors Den that they want there to be less emphasis on holding home and strategy of holding home and contesting mid, and they want there to be more focus on back caps and contesting. To what extent do you think that is a goal that the devs should have versus making changes and seeing how the players discover the meta and
I mean,
strategy around it?
if they want to rework the renown and points, then that would require like so much more work and so much more testing to be done. I'd say if you want to do that, really, like I don't think people would be against it. Like other than people who I guess really love the current renown system, but I don't think anybody is exactly in love with it. Nobody's gonna be against it, but the amount of work to you need to put in to actually get that right would probably mean like an actual test server, like Marching Fire, with weekly updates and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's something they're willing to do.
I think that I have to agree that this is something that would take a certain period of time over time. I was going to say you start simple, you start slow. And overall, there have been some good and some bad changes with these last series of TGs. But ultimately, when it comes to, I feel like there's almost a gigantic flip that's happened when it's been said multiple times in a few different ways during this cast is the big issue right now on and even a question in chat asks why would you need to rework Dominion? Well, because Dominion has flaws. One of the biggest flaws right now is sort of the snowballing effect that happens when you have a point and there's defender renown. You know, you're risking a lot to try and capture a point. If you die on that point, the entire team standing on that point, the entire enemy team standing on that point gets all those points. So I think that that being as big of an issue as it is, and that being, I think that's sort of one of the main issues that is trying to be addressed here. If you're adjusting point balances and you're taking away defender renown entirely, and I know it's been recognized that there may have been some other testing with that, but ultimately, if you're taking away defender renown entirely, but you're also boosting some of these other points, like with mid as an example, and making it so much more important and integral to winning, I think there's a drastic change, and you're making a hard shift from one side of the spectrum to the entire other side of the spectrum, where you're just kind of what we've been saying is you're throwing bodies on points, and it's the exact opposite of what we've been of what's currently happening on live. If you're going to try and capture a point, you're not going to keep throwing a body on it, at least not in the competitive world. You know, we're going to see that in matchmaking regardless. I don't think that we can break that psychology overnight. But competitively speaking, and with people who understand how the renown works, they're not just going to keep throwing bodies on the point on live without knowing, okay, I'm going to lose something if we can't take this point. We're definitely going to be losing out on not only on capping the point, having an extra place to heal, an extra place to generate points, but we're also going to lose out on giving the enemy defender renown. So I think that, kind of slow and over time, and not that these things. Also, can I please point out for just a complete moment before I forget it? The UI is freaking awesome. You want to talk about what's good? The UI is fantastic, and I honestly thought for some reason with their explanation when they dropped it on the Warriors Den, I thought it was going to go live. I thought that was a side change that they were going to push live, and
Little renown widget.
the Renown widget, yes, the Renown widget, yes, one of the that's so nice. That's so smooth, so clean. It cleans up a lot of issues. You know, you're not missing chat for the people like on console that actually utilize as an example, and some people that move from console to PC will utilize those short chats like, "A point, I got this," or "I'm doing this," or "Capture this," or "Group up here." those little shortcuts are completely lost when you get spammed by 50 different renown with renown slash kill slash this or whatever messages, and
Yeah.
just breaking that up down underneath that is makes it cleaner for everybody. And for PC, you're not missing the damage numbers or any chats that may be happening with your team if you're utilizing chat. Which, I mean, obviously in this type of situation, you're going to be in like the comp world, you're not going to be typing to each other. But in those particular situations, like in the casual gameplay, that's something that it would highly benefit from. But ultimately, we can benefit from just having a nice little clean UI, and it's so freaking awesome. And I just wanted to like throw that in there because we've been talking about a lot of bad things and also what can be changed and whatnot. I just want to throw in an absolute positive that I don't think anybody can disagree with.
Yeah, I think the nice little I did do a bit of a double take when you said the UI is fantastic, but when it comes to the renown widget, the renown widget's great. The rest of
Yes.
the UI, I like. Yeah.
Well, sure. There's some debate to be made. I
Biased.
mean, the whole flashy thing with like the flashing of the screen. If we could just clean that up to where it's just like, okay, you've captured a point, and like if like with the feats, you unlock a feat, just put it up the top of the screen, just like it is like capturing a point. Have it flash one time on that little bitty rectangle, and have it go away. Don't have it clear up and like covering my fight widget.
Yeah.
That hurts
Can
everybody.
we please also get rid of the fact that whenever you try to fucking use a projectile feat or a targetable feat, for some reason there's just a giant image of the feat you're using next to the fucking crosshair.
I mean, in
Like,
general, the
Like-
ranged feats, like be it bow or projectiles or even stuff like arrow strike, the UI for that is terrible.
it is like it's like I know what feat I'm fucking using. Like I don't need a gigantic arrow strike icon next to my crosshair covering up where I'm trying to fucking aim. Like it's so awkward to try and aim arrow strike long distance because literally the icon completely covers up where you're trying to aim. And part of the strength of that feat is the fact that you can use it cross map to peel or to add on to gank damage or to add into team fights whilst you're boosting or whatever. Like, and using it cross map with that gigantic icon telling me, like, it's literally just the arrow strike icon and it covers the entire fucking area I'm trying to aim. It's horrible. It's almost impossible to be precise with that feat from long distance just because of that. They have to
Yeah.
change that.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, and certainly, maybe we should do that. Maybe we should do a dojo on the For Honor UI and what aspects are definitely in need of
If we do that, we're gonna need like a billion more visual aids. Like
Yeah, I
talking
think we'll
about
need-
UI
we'll
stuff's
need a
gonna be
lot.
a bit hard, Chief.
Yeah, it might be. I think that's probably something for another time. So I haven't really got any. I've looked through my list of things that I've brought. I guess there's one more thing which is about how we have covered that because you given your opinion on that on Normie as well, which is how important should renown be? Should it be an integral tactical aspect of the game, or should it just be an extra thing on top of it that sort of meters out the feats, but not more important? But we have talked about that, and Clutch brought up a really good point that it's flexible, so it sort of decouples the score like from how the renown from how well you're doing. So it gives you an advantage, but it doesn't make you win on its own, which is a good point. And Normie said that how he actually does enjoy the complexity of having the multi-layered tactical, like the other resource to be managing. That's even a little bit obscure, but it's entertaining and it's giving you tactics. So we don't really need to cover that. The only other one thing I want to ask Verb and Norgoz again, particularly Verb, what aspects do you want to see improved of the game in terms for making it better for spectating and casting in terms of Dominion?
Gosh, you want this first? Because I imagine you've got a fairly extensive list.
Primarily for spectating, I would say I would give the floor to you first on this one.
Okay, let me unfurl the giant bloody scroll. So to not make this last 50 years, because we have been talking for a while, a lot of the changes I could talk about are changes that the players are actively advocating for right now. More character diversity, solid lineups, make the feats not something that decides games by themselves. All of these things would contribute to more diversity on broadcast. Like, for example, to take something that isn't tested grounds but was an influenced on the tournament recently, the Conquest format. Just by de facto reason that characters were locked out, we got to see some more picks. Eventually, we did see the same, B teams coming up, but some variety is better than none, and we can get a lot more of that on broadcast if the game itself is in a better place. It's like, as much as I can wish on broadcast, like, I'm really hoping to see a Jormungandr or a Shaolin. That's not gonna bloody happen, because it's Jormungandr and bloody Shaolin. Or I really hope to see Slippery come up and do the analytical breakdown of Slippery. That can't happen if Slippery is a giant pile of shit mapped to the right D-pad.
Is it really that? It's just nothing there. It's just an empty. Just you choose to not have a tier 4.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can make broadcasts more exciting and more fun are things that, ironically enough, the players want. I mean, hell, Clutch, to take your perspective, you got a pretty interesting one on this. You run the Coliseum, and that is, you're pretty much the de facto 1v1 caster right now in the scene because of it. Is there anything, because feats aren't enabled in there, that could be done to the game on a raw level to make the Coliseum more fun for you to broadcast? Or is it literally just the same generic stuff we're talking about?
I think, I mean, like there's nothing like specific that would really make it that much easier for me 1v1 wise. Like in terms of like actual game settings, I'd actually like to be able to set custom timers, because obviously I have a 1 minute timer for my Coliseum, which I do think is a little short. Like I want shorter timers to encourage more action, because we all know like how fucking boring 1v1s can be on longer timers between reaction players. But 60 seconds is still a bit short for me, but it's the only thing I can do. It's like it goes from like 1 minute up to just being way too high. I'd like to have something a bit more like typical of fighting games, at least have like a 99-second timers, like a minute and a half, just over a minute and a half. But in terms of actual like tools for like the spectator mode in 1v1s, there's not really anything that important. Like, I guess there could be like little things that would be a little bit of personal flair. Like, for example, I sometimes have a viewer who comes in and opens up Frona Tracker and will literally post like the stats of both of the players participating with like their 1v1 stats, like their win rate, their favorite characters, the highest rep characters, the characters with the highest win rate, things like this. I guess it would be nice to have some kind of in-game information for that if I wanted to show it. But honestly, when it comes to 1v1s, there's nothing that's really vital. It's a lot more like 4v4 stuff that would be nice to see added.
I have something to add here. As a professional one-time caster, I want to be able to see damage numbers as a spectator.
Ooh,
I agree.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That'd be nice.
Wouldn't that mean
I
that
want
you have
to
lock on a specific player?
No.
and-
I mean, obviously, yeah. If you lock on a player, you see what damage numbers they're seeing. But I want to see, when I'm the professional caster, I want to see the 150 damage flask, and I want to blow up the chat about it and act big.
Yeah, they've certainly mentioned it as a thing that'd been really nice for spectator mode to have like little score stat windows when you can click on when you're watching it from a player's perspective, pop up a little window that has all the players' stats in it, like how many kills they got on, that kind of thing, instead of having to go straight to the scoreboard and that kind of stuff. But I was more thinking in terms of like overall mechanical stuff in terms of how the game itself plays out, that you want from a spectator. So what things that I liked about this testing ground was that matches were closer, and that made, at least at the end of them, made them tend to be a bit more exciting. So
I would like to twist this around a little bit though. Like, yes, the matches were closer, but how much of that was because of TG changes?
Yeah.
And how much of that was forcing teams to play Valk versus Metacomps?
That
is a very good point, of course. But we did have in the first testing ground, we didn't run this conquest format. It was just the same old normal, and we did have mirror comps on a few occasions, and I think in general matches were closer, not just for the conquest format. Although, of course, that has a big impact on it
I mean,
as well.
yeah, they were unrightfully closer. Like,
Pardon?
I'm sorry, but Minimeisters being the best team in the tournament has no business going 1,000 to 800 against a team of like rep 20s. Like, I
Yeah,
get
well,
that we
that's a
want
good
to
point in that
make.
case. Yeah.
I understand that we want games, well, not necessarily to be closer, but to, how do I say this? To have
More
like
games to go fast
to have
as
a
normally.
chance, to have an equal chance of coming back and of keeping a lead or whatever, but we also don't want player skill to be disregarded.
Yep,
Yeah.
I completely agree
think-
with that. No, that's a very good point. Thank you for bringing up that counterpoint to the. Yeah, you want it to be close, but only when it should be close, not when it shouldn't be close.
I think that to kind of piggyback off of that, maybe I'm saying the same thing in a different way, but we want actions to be impactful. We want to feel the and as a spectator, we want to feel and see the impact that certain things and actions are having on the game. So is a I don't know where I was going with this. You'll have to forgive me, a little sleep
It's
deprived.
all right,
But
no worries.
one thing I wanted to mention when you asked the original question here is I think that, and this kind of goes back to what we one of the things we talked about before in regards to renown gain and whatnot. So with all the changes to renown and all the changes to renown gain, and I'm getting to my point, is if this is what they're going for, this is what they're aiming for, is to to kind of make renown gain more consistent, make and change the way that renown is gained overall. The question that this raises, or I think that what this kind of insinuates, is that one of the next really big things, and I would say this regardless of whether or not testing grounds was going to be changed, or whether Dominion is going to be changed or not, that feats are going to be a really big thing that need to be adjusted in maybe right alongside some of the testing grounds, or some of the testing ground changes that are good, proposed to take place. Because as we mentioned, Fire Flask is huge, and you also have things like Last Laugh as an example, which you're probably not going to see that in comp play, but or at least not that frequently. But things like that reward bad gameplay. That if you're able to get that more, things like that more consistently, that's something that brings up, especially if you're trying to death ball on a point that you don't own, and you're getting more renowned for contesting it. And then, oh well, you know what? Four people, your rest of your team died. There's four people standing on top of you. Last lap pops, boom, they die, and then you own the point, and they're in breaking. And what do you do with that?
Well, I personally just sit and chuckle to myself. These idiots killed me with a light attack when I could, and I blew them all up. Ha 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 ha. No, I jest. Okay, I think we're getting to the end of the session. We should wrap it up. And I think what I'd like to do for the last bit. Oh no, I'm going to bring in Jules because Jules has been waiting for a while to ask questions. So I'm bringing Jules in now. Hello there, Jules. If you're still listening, I hope he is.
Hopefully not on the toilet. But yes.
Oh,
Probably on the
What was the
toilet.
last bit?
that's all right. He might jump in. He's been waiting a long time, I feel, but pretty out of keeping him a long time. But before then, oh, hello. Hey there, Jules. How's it going?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thank you.
Oh,
Have you got a question or something you want to bring up?
No, I just wanted to say, first of all, well, thank you very much. It was a very interesting talk. And to add on to that, as maybe more casual and spectator side, I've been following the Dominion series and the Conquest tournament, Conquest and Conqueror tournaments lately. And it's mostly to add on to what Verbalosity and Norgoz have been saying, is that as a more casual, although experienced, but casual spectator, the game to me feels really misses I guess, the impact that other games could have. In the Dominion series, we just see mostly the same types of composition. We see the same types of strategies, and I guess it can get kind of boring in a way. While for the Conquest format, we would see a lot more of variety and a lot more of stuff that would happen. And I feel that it was also really, well, just really nice to see. And
Thank you much. glad you enjoyed it.
I think one of the main problem we have with the game right now is that I feel like the devs don't really know if they want to go towards should the games be decided by team fighting ability or should the games be decided by strategic ability. For now, like it seems like it's kind of in the middle with leaning more towards team fights. And if it leans more and more toward the team fight side, then as Clutch has said, why not just make up just a 4v4 mode without, which is not skirmish, just not based on points, but just the team fights. But
I
if you
genuinely would quite like to see a 4v4 team, a version of Brawls that's 4v4. Genuinely, would be, I'd like to run tournaments on that. I think it'd be fun. It'd be good for scrims as well. But
Exactly. That's why I think Crystal of Death is always it's always one of the most requested uh, time limited mode because it's just a lot of fun and you can also see the kind of team fighting and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's really quick and you don't get all the strategy etc. And you can see a lot more characters because each character can have its own strength etc.
Yeah,
But if they want to lean more towards the strategic side, the I just don't understand why the minion lane gives out as much point as it does right now. It just doesn't make any sense. As you all have said, it just doesn't make sense.
okay.
And I feel like they should maybe the devs are just locked into the minion mindset of two zones and a minion lane. And as we've seen in the Dead by Daylight events, just adding a third zone could get that more strategic element just a tiny bit more. I feel like there could be more stuff to be done, and I guess maybe they're just I don't, I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. No worries. I think we're going to have our last little bit before we wrap it up. I would like just to go back and look at the actual numbers and the changes and be like, vote yes, plus, minus. We want this. We don't want this. This should be this number. This should be this number. So, standardized renown for all characters. Big
All
plus. Big minus.
classes, you mean?
Plus.
Yes,
Big
Big
plus.
plus.
Yeah, big plus.
Plus.
Okay. Removal of most of the renown bonuses. So the ones that have been, let's say, disregarding which renown bonuses are we happy to have seen gone?
I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna say we probably need to make a very big
mostly-
clarification.
mostly
Renown.
all except for Ace and Defender. I'm sure you can make
Yeah.
exceptions, but without a list, all but that.
Yeah, like honorable
fair.
renown. I'm fine to see that go.
Yeah, things like honorable, like
Dishonorable renown is also
Yeah.
pretty stupid. Like you get penalized for ganking.
In different
the
words,
just
the
keep defender and
Defender and Ace are the ones that we really, really want to see
Yeah,
stay.
that's it. If they want to add
Agree.
something else, just prioritize defender and ace. That's it.
Fair enough. So cap speeds. Do we want to have uniform cap speed? So let's say that's a different value. Let's say, for example, 3 seconds or 2 seconds, or do we want to have it be different for 1 player and 2 players, or 1 player and any more than 1 player, or
I mean,
what
I think
speed?
what I said
But
is
different
I
cap speeds
would-
are
I would like to see different cap speeds depending on the amount of players on the point, but have it diminishing returns. So instead of it being like 4 seconds, then 3, then 2, then 1, have it be like 4 seconds, then 3, then 2.5, then 2.
Okay.
Something like that.
yeah. So
I
you can
agree.
give also the attacker the time to actually enter the point before like
Yeah. So you don't get any situations where you might accidentally get pushed off of a point and you just instantly lose the point. That's not okay. But
Yeah.
The
actually
death
make
they
it,
want to
it like making it so that the point still gets captured faster the more people are on it is still a good thing to have.
All right.
I have something to add, and I
Please.
tend to agree with. I personally like the standardization. Now I know that creates some issues in certain maps and whatnot. That said, that if we can alleviate that issue in some way, great. If not, I think that having it to be a flat 2 different speeds, and now whether or not that would be based on like 1 or 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4, that remains to be seen, I guess. But I don't know if it should be like number 2 or 3 or more to be the different number. But I say have it be a standardization for 1 or 2 different values.
Fair enough.
I
I think
agree.
I would be interested in seeing it as just flat 3 seconds, but I don't know.
That will still be too much for certain maps. 3
Yeah,
seconds
fair
is a
enough.
lot.
Like, yeah, 3 seconds fine, but then you have Harbor, and
Yeah, and Beachhead and Overwatch, which C point is like the most important point.
How fast do capture speeds need to be able to get up to be able to capture
2
points on Harbor?
seconds.
that's
2
why
seconds
that's
are
why
probably
having
good.
multiple values is beneficial, because like having multiple values is gonna balance that out on small maps, while it's not gonna make a difference on big maps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're on the other side of the point of the map, you won't be able to cap the point anyway. There is no way.
Yeah. Okay. Very good point. So the UI and score distribution. So currently we've talked about how mid is currently mid is the same as boosting, and single points is just a little bit less than it's not quite less than half, but it's not quite plus. It's not quite doubled between boosting and boosted and unboosted, and mid is the same as boosted. Do we like the fact that the UI is accurate, so that the +1 and +2 are always the same? If they say things.
I mean, obviously,
okay,
that's just improving the UI from being bad to
yeah.
being good.
But next thing I was going to go is like, where do you think the points should overall be? Do you think that boosting and mid should be
I
just
think
holding a
that
point should be faster, or
I think it should be a thing of what they get you combined. For example, what does farming mid and or not farming mid, but having mid and contesting a point get you? What does like boosting 2 points and losing mid get you? And that type of stuff.
Okay, so we need to, in that case, like come up with some kind of like matrix of all the different scenarios and how much each scenario should be worth in terms of point gain or something along those lines.
Yeah, because
Okay.
obviously I don't think like boosting 2 points should be equal to just farming mid, or 1 mid and 1 point is like more than 2.5 times boosting 1 point. It's like we're jumping from very little to a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the changes that actually came in the testing grounds. Feat thresholds. Do we think we get feats that everybody get feats too much, or they
okay?
About right overall? If it weren't for the fact that renown is all kind of a bit squiffy at the moment.
Problem is we can't tell what's good numbers for renown thresholds until we have a renown system that works properly and everybody's happy with.
That's similar to what I was going to say. I mean, I personally liked the values in the second TG versus the third TG. I kind of like them both in regards, but generally speaking. But I agree with Normie. It's hard to answer that question without having something that's solid.
Yeah, like sure, for this TG the smaller numbers are better because they fix the problem. But if they change the TG and make it to what we just said we want, it might be bad with the smaller numbers. So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. Oh yeah. Okay. Question about here's another question. I guess it's a little bit.
Wait.
Let's keep this as the last question. We're running a bit long here, Chief. Just FYI.
All right. It was the last one anyway. Actually, I kind of wanted to talk about. I wanted to say about healing. Current zone healing, fast, more, less.
Same thing as thresholds. We cannot tell unless we have set in stone numbers for capturing. Though I do want to quickly mention, if you really want to keep this very bullshit, if I may use this term, time for capping, you need to give something like a boost of like say 35 HP instant heal as soon as you cap a point.
Okay, I'm with you on that one. And then I think that's it really. The only other potential thing was should contesting a zone fully remove all the points that it generates?
What? No.
So like, because I mean, it's currently you go on a zone,
No,
goes to no points generated. Should it give plus the same as an uncontested zone?
I mean, I
Like,
think
what-
stalling points, using that as a thing for stalling points is good.
okay, so you
You're
want that. You want-
contesting, you're stalling,
you
you're
do want
like...
we do want stalling to be a thing, just not to be as powerful a thing.
So are
Yeah.
you suggesting like a point doesn't necessarily like you do capture a point, but you don't necessarily own it per se? Like say if there's 4 on a point and there's 4 on a point, no matter
Basically,
who owns
removing
it's
soft
null.
points.
No, I was saying that if you it's 0 if you don't have a point. If you own the point, there's nobody on it, it's +1. If you own a point and just you're on it, it's +2. If you own the point and you're on it and an enemy's on it, it's +1 still.
Oh.
That was
I mean, I don't think
that's a
that.
good idea.
I don't think that needs changing.
okay. Doesn't need changing. All right. Cool.
May
Well,
I
I think we've
throw something
covered
in
a
here?
lot of. I think we've covered a lot of things.
Make
Thank
it
you very much
quick.
for already
Make it
patient with
quick.
me blabbering on about all the time. Thank you
Goes.
everybody for joining. Antonio, Blitz, Clutch, Normie, Norgoz, Verb, and thanks to Vein who was here earlier. And Jules for popping in as well. Is there anybody I've forgotten?
Oh, I've forgotten something. Single pick, please.
Yes.
And please remove perks. Please, please,
Oh,
please remove
yeah.
I
perks.
also want more maps to be changed like a little bit more frequently.
Shut up, onesies player.
Can we get feats on the scoreboard?
Yeah, that'd be cool as well.
Yes.
All right.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
discussion
that'd be
for
good.
another time. Let's wrap up. Verb's falling
All right.
asleep
Well,
or something.
thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thanks for everybody who came on and talks, and put up with me blabbering on. I think that's it. We're not going to do a dojo. Well, I'm not going to do a dojo this weekend because I am going to be busy. See you all soon. Hopefully, don't when the freaking survey for the Telegram comes out, I'll put it somewhere so we can all fill it in. But I haven't found it, so I don't know what's happening with that. Shrug. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Soon, TM. Goodbye.
Thanks, Spaniard.
Bye, everybody. Bye.